And we are off on buhbai's side. And we should see Crowbat Master kicking things off here in just a moment. So lots of Celeste so far today on Speed Gaming. I hope everyone's been enjoying it. I can tell you that it's been a lot of fun not only commentating this, but racing in it as well, and there's still plenty more to come.
So far, from what we've seen, buhbai manages to pull off an impressive deathless prologue. Really great.
Very, very impressive stuff. For the record, prologue is hilariously easy. Just a heads up. As we can see, Crowbat Master is just starting off the prologue right now. So we do have a bit of desync here, but it's going to be completely fine. This race and every race in this tournament, for that matter, are all actually being timed on the in-game timer. So desync doesn't really mean much because of different load times and you know, different reasons for pausing and whatnot.
And it looks like Crowbat also managing to get to the prologue just fine.
Lots of bunny hopping for speed boosts in the prologue. Only saves about a second, but the prologue and the first chapter of this race, or the first chapter of the run entirely, are very, very optimized. So it's good to get the extra little bit of help there. I think we're getting a sync here between the two, or possibly buhbai's stream could be frozen. No, we were just waiting for a sync. Perfect. That's awesome. So now we got the timers there. They're a lot closer together than they were at first, which is nice.
So now just to quickly go over like the basics of movement in this game really quickly. So obviously you have the dash, and we use that all the time to go fast. But on top of just having a normal dash, if you dash down and right, and then right after your dash you jump, you can get a lot more distance than just doing a normal dash and a jump. And that's known as a hyper. It's basically the most common form of movement in most of these rooms where we're just going horizontally. And then another thing you see from buhbai there, he does what we call a spike jump. You don't really jump off of the spikes, it's more of a wall jump, but it looks like it, and we can just set that up by like pushing ourselves up against that wall, and then we can just easily bounce off the spikes.
Very impressive. Chapter 1 from buhbai. Crowbat Master electing not to go for the neutral wall jump strat, but finishes off Chapter 1 as well. Cool little strat there with the cutscene skip and being on a certain y-axis. Actually, the cutscene there spawns us on a specific x-axis, but does not worry about the y-axis. So depending on what y-axis you're on, whenever you skip that cutscene, it'll actually keep you in the same y-axis and change your x-axis to wherever you're supposed to spawn at the end of the cutscene, which in turn forces Madeline to spawn inside of the dream block there and saves a little bit of time.
And now moving into the battle in here, fight here for buhbai, she basically just follows you behind you at like a 3-second interval. It's not a huge deal for these first few rooms, but for the last couple it can be pretty challenging to avoid her. But buhbai is just like zooming through these rooms and doesn't even have to worry about it.
A little bit of commentator's curse there, as you said that. He did take a death. But buhbai, one of the more experienced runners in this entire tournament, no doubt.
I didn't even realize you could get that far ahead.
In that last section, you mean?
Yeah, in like most of those rooms.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Buhbai is also having really clean movement to finish off this chapter, using a lot of ultras, which basically, once you conserve your momentum from a hyper dash, like I explained earlier, if you dash diagonally and down, it only increases your speed, but if you would dash horizontally, it fully resets your speed. So we can go really fast with that.
Crobat Master taking a couple of unfortunate deaths here in this room, and is going to elect to take a safer strat. As Buhbai now is starting Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is strongly cycle-based, so you're going to see a lot of, different strats in this chapter for sure between runners. They vary a lot because of the amount of different things you can do in these cycle-based rooms. We've also got some keys that follow us around when we collect them. They actually don't disappear when you die, and they just don't disappear at all until you find a keyhole to put them in. Robot Master now entering the Awake section of Chapter 2. Just some movement to close off the chapter. So Crobat Master is going to enter Chapter 3 here as well. And Buhbai entering the Huge Mess segment, well, about to enter the Huge Mess segment, where we actually have to hit 3 switches in various different positions to clean up the huge mess in this big room here to unlock that key and be able to proceed on. There are 3 different levels of the Huge Mess section: the lower level, the middle level, and the higher level. And the order that we do them in is the bottom, then the top, and then the middle, because it's the most optimized.
Also, you might have seen Buhbai doing another sort of spike jump there in one of those bottom rooms. Basically, as long as you're moving away from the spikes, they won't kill you. So we can just jump off that wall even though it has spikes on it.
Attempting a hyper there and taking a death. Nothing too threatening, though. That room's very short, so not a very costly death from Buhbai. Crobat Master working his way through, trying to get up to that Huge Mess segment as well. And Buhbai entering the last section of the Huge Mess segment.
Yeah,
very fancy strats from Buhbai, some that I've not seen before, I can tell you that much.
You can really tell just like the huge difference in strats that's possible just watching Buhbai and Crobat, because Buhbai goes for some like crazy stuff in like all of these rooms.
I mean, there's some stuff here like that. Wow. That hyper into the Ultra there for the key was pretty impressive. This Crobat Master about to start off the Huge Mess section. And Buhbai is actually about to do a fancy little strat here in this upcoming room on the pressure platforms, where he's going to hyper dash across these rather than waiting on each of them, go all the way to the left side of the screen, collect the key, and then we're trying to spawn him at the start of the screen again, because the keys don't disappear when you die. Saves us from having to dash all the way back.
Crobat having a little trouble with his spike jump, but he does manage to eventually get it.
He'll push the first switch as Buhbai enters the Oshiro fight, which is well renowned to be a run killer in some circumstances. Buhbai just whizzing through it though.
Unfortunately, sometimes that bunny hop or that hyper into a bunny hop just doesn't get you over the spring there, and unfortunately, buhbai taking a death because of it.
This is the longest screen in the Oshiro fight. The last one, very costly to take a late death here. We'll see what happens. And buhbai
looks like buhbai just gets through with it with a 453 resort. That's the number of deaths you have. That's incredible.
That's very, very good. The sub 5. Crobat Master entering the last section of the huge mess segment now, as buhbai will work his way into Chapter 4. The Forsaken chapter. So Golden Bridge is well known for its wind, which, as I speak up, wow, very impressive quarter boost there from buhbai.
Is this the task?
Holy cow, that was very impressive stuff. I've never seen that done before. Interrupted my commentary and everything. Goodness. Well, I was going to explain the wind, but buhbai doesn't seem to be bothered too much by it, so he's just gonna avoid avoid being pushed away by this, and you know, he'll just corner boost through it. But the wind is the main mechanic of Chapter 4, along with these directional platforms, which can be changed directions by holding on to a switch on one of the 4 sides. Sometimes they have switches, sometimes they don't, such as those ones that he didn't even activate. You know, to be completely honest, I was kind of expecting him to try this without the block because of how crazy he's been doing stuff so far. And these little green balls just push Madeline through the air at dash distance, replenish her dash, and can be activated quicker by pressing the dash button itself. A couple of reverse hyper dashes in this room, and then a wave dash. Very nice. As Crobat Master now coming into the key section. Wow, very nicely done on his part as well to grab that key. I don't think I've seen that room being done that way by conserving the dash either. Good stuff from buhbai. As Crobat Master now entering the Oshiro boss fight.
And now also buhbai is really getting into like the main wind section. This is where the wind kind of starts to go crazy and makes these last rooms very challenging. And on top of that, in a few rooms we get introduced to the snowball, which it's basically Oshiro, except you can't really tell when it's coming.
And it approaches from the right side instead of the left. So it kind of gives you less time to, you know, readjust yourself when you're all the way to the right side of the screen. Holy cow. The ultras and stuff from buhbai are just, they're mesmerizing. And yes, as you can see there from buhbai, he actually did bonk off the top of the snowball, and it also replenishes his dash, which is nice. So they can be used to your advantage if you have them on a specific cycle. And it'll be a 311 Golden Ridge for buhbai. Very nice. He just took a few unfortunate deaths in the room before the heavy wind sections. Cost him a bit of time. And he'll enter Mirror Temple as Crobat Master now in the last Oshiro room, trying to finish up Chapter 3. Oh, very close to taking a death at the end, but scrapes by, and Crobat Master is going to be moving on to Golden Bridge now. buhbai entering Chapter 5, and as you can see, these red balls, very similar to the green ones, except they will go in a specific one of the 8 directions until they run into something where Madeline dashes out of them. Well, we could be seeing another abuse of the cutscene y-axis here from buhbai. Actually, no, he decides not to do it. It can be done in that room as well.
And then he's also going to use this boost platform here. Basically, these platforms move whenever you dash, and you can use them to get some crazy momentum.
He didn't get the corner boost there.
That we'll see in the next chapter.
Also not going for the double bubble skip, which is very respectable, a very hard strat indeed. Yeah, very clean run so far from buhbai. Crobat Master getting himself out of a tight situation there. I wasn't sure he was going to make it away from that that lock switch without death, but he did. He'll be coming up on a spike jump as well here very soon, as buhbai getting set to enter the unraveling section of Chapter 5. Having a little bit of trouble with his secret control, but manages to make up for it. And Cookie, I guess if you wanted to touch on the Seekers.
So basically, these Seekers, they're not fun. They chase you in the same way every time, but if your movement is slightly off what it normally is, they can easily become a big issue. But hopefully we won't see that. And just like the snowballs, we can kill them by jumping on their heads, and they can also collect these coins used to open the gates, which is used in a couple of rooms like this one here.
Yeah, there are some very interesting strats, and this is another area in the game that has a lot of different strats between runners. And you couldn't really see it because it happened off screen, but the Seeker there, when he respawned, did actually activate the lock switch for buhbai.
Yeah, after you kill them, they come back after a few seconds with a big explosion thing that pushes you out. That's not really super big in this run, at least. But it can, show up sometimes in the Theo section and maybe even cause some problems.
Yeah, there are a few runners who actually use that in their strats just as a little helper in some spots for momentum, but you'll see it rarely. Wow, very interesting strat there.
Just pushing the Seeker in with his body. For some reason, sometimes, there's some weird spots that you, actually can hit them and they won't kill you. But most of the time they will.
And here's the Theo section. Basically, Theo's trapped in a crystal. We gotta carry him all the way through this entire segment. Makes for some very, very interesting optimization and strats. Arguably one of the most impressive sections of the game from a developer standpoint, for sure. We can't actually dash with Theo, but we can dash before or after we throw him, and in turn pick him up and maintain, as you can see right there, that's one of the most fun rooms in the section. We can pick him up and carry the same momentum we had in the dash prior to dropping him. As it looks like it could be a sub 5 Mirror Temple from buhbai here. It should be. And Crobat Master now in the Heavy Wind section of Chapter 4.
Yeah, buhbai has a really clean last room. Gets a lot of speed with an Ultra at the very start, and ends up with a 445. That's a relatively solid Chapter 5 time.
Oh, Crobat Master coming very close to a death there with that snowball actually bonking off the top. Now we're going to see a strat here in Chapter 6 right off the bat called Lake Skip, and also introducing the mechanic of the feathers. They travel a set distance in one of the eight normal directions, unless you use analog. And here is the leg skip. Bye-bye. Oh, absolutely perfect. It's a bit of a different version than the traditional one that's used. He climbs the wall instead of dashes out of the water, but still very impressive nonetheless. And he completely avoids that crush block as well, says, to heck with that. As Crobat Master now entering Chapter 5 himself. Another section coming up here where you're going to watch Buhbai use some neutral wall jumps to climb this wall rather than taking the long way around. Actually, he only needs one. And will he get to this block before it falls? Yes, he will. Very nice. Carrying the momentum into the next room as well. He's going to do an up-dash wall kick off of this block to give him a nice clearing distance over that gap as well. Very good stuff so far from Buhbai in Chapter 6. Here are some pinball bumpers. There were some in the rooms before. I just failed to explain them. Basically, they're what you would expect a bumper to be. But if you are facing away from them, when you make contact with them, they actually do give you an extra little boost compared to normal. It is used, and Buhbai is actually going to take the upwards route here. Using the bumpers to advantage, and very well done, actually.
That path is actually slightly faster, even though most runners prefer to go to the bottom there. So an important thing about these feathers are if you get to the next feather before your first one runs out, you skip like the half a second cutscene of getting a new feather. And that is really important for some of these runes, and can like really mess up your cycle with those moving bumpers.
Yes,
Those are bumpers.
Yes, there are some strats that are very, very dependent on getting the feather in time. Also, Buhbai got a ridiculous amount of height there on that hyper dash. I'm not quite sure if that was to do with the water or not. And you're going to see on this crush block at the end, he's going to carry a ridiculous amount of momentum through to the battle and fight. Right there. He just zips through that entire room, runs into Battlin, and we're back. So, Battlin's a little angrier than she was last time, and this time she's throwing some electric balls and some laser beams at us. But I don't think Buhbai is going to have that much trouble with it. There are also these falling blocks from the sky, or from the ceiling, rather, as well, that are a mechanic in this fight. But for the most part, she has no health bar. You have to hit her a set amount of times to progress from room to room.
And now Crobat is also moving into this Seeker section in Chapter 5. And see how he deals with these runes.
Ridiculous previous room there from Buhbai using some Ultra Dashes. And a slight corner boost there. Good stuff so far from Crobat Master in the Seeker section. As Buhbai in the last room of the first phase of the battle and fight now, having no trouble at all. Oh, except for right there. Does manage to save that though. And Crobat Master getting through that last room of the Seeker section very well, as now In this section of the battle and fight, we actually see some moving platforms. They move up and down, or left or right, or sometimes even on a diagonal plane on set intervals, and they can be used to maintain momentum as well.
Also, Crobat Master is doing a skip that we didn't really talk about because most of the time runners just have this down really well, but this skip that Crobat is doing does save like 2 minutes. And you skip a bunch of keys and stuff.
Regardless, it is the biggest like time-worthy skip in the game, and buhbai just blitzing through this chapter 6. Very close to a sub 6, actually. I don't think it will be, unfortunately, but very, very close. Still a ridiculously good chapter. This is actually going to be really close. It's a 559. Unbelievable. That's got to be to the 0.9. I can't tell. That's a crazy, crazy chapter 6. As buhbai will now jump into the last chapter of the game, the summit.
Getting a little trolled by this seeker here. Sometimes if they get into a bad position, they're just awful.
Yeah, they can be really hard to readjust and, you know, deal with. So, as many already know, Chapter 7 is basically a culmination of all the other chapters in the game. This first section is strongly based off of the chapter we were just in, actually, the Reflections.
Crobat, unfortunately, has been having a bunch of close calls in this Seeker section, or in this Theo section. He's taken a couple of deaths.
Unfortunate death there on buhbai's side as well. He hits the spikes on the top of that platform. Not a very costly death, though. And yeah, buhbai is... I do believe that buhbai is on some crisp PB pace if he keeps playing the way he is. There is a possibility, no doubt. Crobat Master still having a little bit of trouble with those Seekers. As buhbai jets through the 500-meter section of Summit and goes into the 1,000-meter section, you probably will see a couple... Actually, right there was one. You can actually hyper dash out of these dream blocks. It's a very tight frame to be able to do so, but it's possible for sure, and it does save some time in some spots. Crobat Master now in the last room. Sorry about that, didn't mean to interrupt you.
I mean, we were both trying to say the same thing.
It happens. Actually, buhbai does a hyper dash there on the dream block right there, and basically seems like he's dashing off of spikes. And that one does actually save a few frames, as now he goes into the 1,500-meter section, the resort section of Summit. Crobat Master getting through that last room. Makes contact with the eyeball at 902. Very impressive room there from buhbai. Uses a lot of hyper dash, or sorry, ultra dashes to make that room look really, really easy. I must say, this is a very impressive run so far from buhbai. Nothing to take away from Crobat Master on our other screen, though he's doing very well as well. He elects not to go for the leg skip to kick off Chapter 6.
So now here we're experiencing the return of the wind and the snowballs. This is one of the hardest screens in like this portion of Summit because of it. The wind is just not our friend.
buhbai did have a little bit of trouble, but was able to make up for it.
And now these next couple of rooms are auto-scrollers, but ooh, that's an unfortunate death. But we can skip most of them with some precise jumps.
Such as that one. Basically an extended hyper dash on the moving platform. Gives you momentum to cross the entire room without the block. And then a well-timed corner wall kick boosts us up far enough. buhbai just blowing through that section. Crobat Master taking the lower route here in Chapter 6. Just a bit slower, but maybe more comfortable for some runners, for sure. As now buhbai in the 2,500 meter section gets that key skip first try. Very good stuff there. That's more of an abuse again, kind of like leg skip of the hitboxes of the spikes. It looks like they're on that corner, but there is actually space there to kick off of. Another very neat strat there, and some momentum boosting again from buhbai, who's just blitzing this Summit so far. Very impressive to watch. There's Commentator's Curse, takes a death. And here comes the door skip, which he should get no problem considering the way he's been... Yeah, just makes it look really easy. As Crobat in some rooms I haven't seen in a long time, actually, to be honest, so I can't really commentate that much. Back to familiar territory now, though. And buhbai entering the 3,000 meter section of the Summit now. A very good time so far. Let's get some hype in the chat for buhbai here. Time to close off this run.
Yeah, if he has a really good 3,000 meters, he could probably finish this up with somewhere around a low 32, which, on top of being an incredible time,
that would be
also
TV, would it not? Yeah. Oh, nice save of the diagonal dash there. Crobat Master a couple of rooms away from talking to Grandma before he'll be descending through Chapter 6 to go fight Battlein. You saw before a downdraft section of the Summit. This is an updraft section. buhbai actually maintains 2 dashes there. Also failed to mention that at the end of Chapter 6, buhbai does receive a second dash. Very sorry I overlooked that one. I think I'm just too caught up watching this insane speed. Couple of nice wall kicks there. Another one to avoid those spikes. Oh, an unfortunate death there, though. On flag 7. Still hot on PB pace. If this last section can be very good. Crobat doing a little bit of swag here on this block before he's about to enter the battle and fight. Buhbai taking a death there early on flag 6. Nothing too troublesome. This does look like it's going to be a low 32 from Buhbai. As Crobat now entering the battle and fight. Couple screens in.
Buhbai is away from any risk of dying. The only chance is if he accidentally resets at the very end, and it looks like he doesn't. And that is a really good time.
A ridiculous time.
32:13. Yeah, 32:13.002.
That is
Congrats
also
to Buhbai on the PB. And just
yeah,
that
a PB for Buhbai. Really 25 deaths with 32 minutes. Maybe a few less deaths than we could have seen at 31. Still, like, there's nothing to take away from that one run. Great stuff from Buhbai. Now we turn our attention mostly to Crobat Master. Yeah, and Crobat Master is actually very on very good pace as well. His PB is a 54. Crobat Master making his way through these battling rooms with ease. Good stuff so far on his side as he takes a death thanks to the commentator's curse. Makes me really want to shut my mouth.
Yeah, I feel like we've both been doing that a lot this run. But I'm going to blame it all on you.
I mean, most of the time it is my fault, to be fair.
That's just because I don't talk enough because I'm a bad commentator.
That's just not true.
So Crobat, unfortunately, taking a couple deaths in this room. This is one of the longer ones in the first half. And it's pretty easy to die at the very end if you make a small mistake.
He does avoid it there. That was very close again, though.
Just barely going over the dash crystal.
This room that he's in right now is a little long as well, so if you do take a death at the bottom... Oh, like I said.
Yeah, unfortunately, the rooms at, like, the end of both halves of this battling fight are super long and are incredibly punishing to die in.
So he's gonna get past the first phase and enter the second one now. With the moving blocks. Oh, Crobat dashing into that ball there. Doing his best to avoid everything. Oh, and he does take another death as well, though. Plays that one a little bit safer and is able to make it across. Narrowly avoiding that one as well. Oh, and he's not going to be able to make it across there. I think Crobat needs a little help here. Make sure you're cheering him on. The last room of the battle and fight now. A very, very long one indeed. Can be costly to die towards the end. Oh, but he takes a death there to the laser right in the middle. And he takes another death at the end. Very unfortunate stuff. Really hurts your heart to see it. Possibly the PB nerves combined with some tournament nerves as well. Narrowly avoids that laser, and he will finish off the battle and fight and go to gather his second dash before he makes his push towards the summit.
Still, though, he does manage to eventually make it through those rooms, and hopefully he still has enough time to be able to get through Summit and still PB, but I'm not sure on that.
So now Crobat Master making his last climb to the top of Celeste Mountain. First section here. Taking a couple of unfortunate deaths in these rooms. Now into the 500-meter section. Elects not to do the wall bounce strat there. Apologies on a section of silence. Just had a little bit of technical problems on my side. Crobat doing everything he can to finish this run off. Keep in mind that PB is a 54. And yes, make sure you are sending him your energy right now. Cleans up 500 meters and moves into 1,000. Return to the dream blocks again. Very well done in the lock switch room not to take a death. It can be very difficult for some runners. And as the commentator's curse usually goes, he dies in the room following, thanks to my big mouth. Ooh, narrowly escaping a death to the spikes there on the corner of that dream block. Very nice. Ooh, unfortunately, no dash to make it through that last one. Another thing about these dream blocks, if you do dash through them and run into a wall while still carrying the dash going through the dream block itself, you actually will die when you make contact with the wall. As now one of the more challenging sections of the summit, the 1500 meters.
And this brings us back to the cycle-based fun of Chapter 3.
Fun in capital letters and quotation marks.
What are you saying? This isn't like your favorite part of the game?
It's opinionative. Very opinion-based. But for me, not quite. I can say that this is one of the areas that gave me the most trouble as a runner when trying to improve.
Yeah, unfortunately, the movement in some of these areas is kind of tight, and even though it looks like there's like decently big spaces to fall through here, it's really easy to just like accidentally walk into one of these dust bunnies. I've done it so many times. And like this room is probably one of the worst because of just how easy it is. Like if you try to like move early and be a bit too optimal, you can easily take a death and lose like 10 full seconds. Also, this room is super long, which doesn't really make it any better.
Yeah, there are some rooms in the this section for sure that... Actually, there are lots of rooms across the entire game that can punish you for being too fast. Crobat really having some trouble with this one. This room is very difficult. Can he make it out this time, though? Yes, he will. Into the lock switch room now.
This is another one of the really hard rooms if you mess up, but it looks like he's just going through.
Yeah, that was very, very good stuff. That's another one of the longer rooms, so it's good for him not to take a death there. Also a good save there on these dust creatures. Not sure if he was thinking twice there. Oh, narrowly avoiding that dust creature as well. Good stuff. I think he was going to try a hyper dash or an extended hyper across that room there, and then decided not to, just to be safe. Now into the last room, another very long room. I never really realized how long or how many long rooms there are in this this segment of the summit specifically.
But fortunately, he makes it through, and now none of us have to ever look at 1,500 meters again.
Until the next race. And the next one. And the next one.
Don't worry, I talked to the devs. They said they're going to patch it out.
If only. Crobat taking the lower route here. The lower route more used by the less... I wouldn't say the less experienced runners, but the runners who take... who aren't as comfortable doing some of the strats in the higher rooms.
Unfortunately, just trying to do a second dash into this bubble and accidentally like double taps the dash button, which causes the bubble to push him the wrong way. and taking a couple of deaths there. So now let's see how he handles this win, because buhbai just breezed through here. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh no, a second one as well. That wall actually, believe it or not, can be very very annoying. Depending, like if you get a little too excited and press your dash button too early there, it can like happen to anyone.
So even though Crobat had some trouble on the first wind room, he went through that second one really well.
Won't go for the auto scroller skip, which is expected.
Stop it with the wind puns. I'm sorry. It should have never happened.
This is your fault, Cookie.
I wish I was like smart so I could think of another one to say right now, but I don't have any ideas.
Oh, did my volume get low? Oh, okay. Apologize. I actually did move away from my mic there. That's my fault. Crobat in the last room now. Oh, but he takes a death as soon as I speak up. I was going to compliment him on how well he was doing. Good thing I didn't, because it would have looked worse on me. More commentators cursing.
I really hope you don't commentate any of my races.
I will commentate them all. Every one of them. Just to spite you.
You can't use the same wind pun twice. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Crobat in the 2,500 meter section now. Oh, unfortunately, nothing to grab onto there with that dash. We'll make it out of that room, though. We'll see if he goes for the... Nope, no key skip, which is totally fine. So I think this is one of the first times, actually, I've seen this in the tournament so far, the bottom room. That's the intended way of doing it. You saw buhbai do the key skip earlier.
Yeah, surprisingly, doing that room is actually not very much slower than just doing the key skip. And if you mess up the key skip a couple of times, it can easily be faster to do the bottom room.
So if I'm to be a betting person, I do not believe that we are going to see a door skip from Crobat Master, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. No, unfortunately
yeah, it looks like he's instead going to try to pull off door skip, and unfortunately messes it up the first time.
Oh, he did
go for it
there. He tried the first door at least. That's kind of funny. I think he heard us. That switch is a little bit of an issue if you're not super comfortable with the direction of your dashes, but he does get it there. Oh, barely gets the crystal. Able to escape that room. This last room, another very long one. I don't really want to say anything until he's through it, if he gets through it.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Now it's your fault if he dies.
Okay, phew.
Wow. Good stuff.
So he is doing great.
So unfortunately, the PB is now just out of reach for Crobat Master, but let's give him some hype as he now enters the 3,000 meter section to close off this run. Now moving into the downdraft section. Now, believe it or not, I think, well, it is very opinionative, but the downdraft section and updraft section are seen both as different difficulty by different people. For example, I think that the downdraft section is actually easier than the updraft section. But
You're wrong. The downdraft section is so hard.
Some people think, like Cookie Apocalypse here, think the opposite.
The updraft section is so easy compared to the downdraft. That's objectively a wrong opinion.
It's just an opinion, though.
And I think Crobat agrees with me. He's having a bit of trouble in these first couple of screens here. Unfortunately, I don't think he can get anywhere from that, but just taking a nice safety there.
Good stuff on these springs from Crobat Master. Is going to get to the next checkpoint just fine. And also, there was a good spike jump there as well. I'm not sure. Yeah. Someone noticed it.
I didn't even see it because I'm a bad commentator. Still, though, managing to get through like the second half of that downdraft section really well. But
and
it
now
does
into
look
that
like
updraft.
at this point, unfortunately, he will not be able to PB.
Just a little
having
out of
2
reach.
Deaths in the Ender Reflection and here in Summit.
Crobat pushing through. Oh, unfortunate death there on flag 15. Now this flag right here, flag 13, can actually be very, very punishing. A very long checkpoint. Sometimes very difficult to control your dashes and your jumps.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the time in this game, the longest rooms are also very hard.
Oh, very unlucky death there at the end. This is flag 14, not 13, my bad. Oh, just narrowly escaping the spike hitboxes there. As you can see, the spikes aren't actually as big as they seem in this section. The hitboxes are a little more central to their sprite than you would expect from looking at them. Does manage to make it through flag 13 just fine. Good stuff from Crobat Master.
Also, another important thing about hitboxes is that Madeline does not really have a head in this game. So a lot of the time, you can like pass half of your head through spikes and you'll be fine.
This area is very, very difficult casually to time the dashes correctly. Good stuff from Crobat, though. He makes it through in a second try. Up to flag 7 now. Almost to the end of the summit here.
So now he's moving on to the final section. We can say goodbye to the wind, and no one else has a chance to say a wind pun, which is good.
Now people are going to say wind puns because you mentioned them again.
Yeah, but there's
Good
only
job.
like I tried to look up synonyms for wind, and I couldn't find any more that were like good, so we're fine.
You looked up synonyms for wind. Oh, no dash to finish that section off. Flag 3 can be a bit of a problem. Makes it through on a second try, though. Yes, okay, good.
Oh, unfortunately, accidentally uses his second dash there, so he takes a death on flag 2. But there it is. He makes it to Flagwood, so hopefully we should be good now. No more deaths, please.
Here we go, closing things off now to the flag.
Past the danger, and he's done with a time of 57.54. Might be a 53, I don't know. 54, just barely. Not a PB for him, but still not a horrible race.
Yeah, good race on both ends for sure. As unfortunately, Buhbai can't use a microphone, so we won't be getting an interview with him. However, we might be getting one with Crobat Master.
Yes, this was a PB for Buhbai. It was a pretty crazy run.
Yeah, very, very good run from Buhbai on his side. A good run from Crobat Master as well. There is Casual Knight.
Hi.
AKA Crobat Master. GG's on the run.
Thank you.
a little bit of a struggle towards the end we could see, but
yeah,
that's tournament nerves plus the thought of possibly being able to PB going into Chapter 6. We really thought it was possible, but unfortunately, I guess, yeah, probably just the nerves getting to you there.
Yeah, it did. I just when I went into the run, when we set up the run, me and Buhbai didn't know he had the world record for all red berries. So I was like, oh, I might be a little screwed here.
Yeah, it was definitely right. There was a large gap in PBs there. But it's always fun to throw yourself into the race environment and the tournament environment like that.
I mean, I did well the first few stages, I guess.
Yeah, it was
better than my last ones.
It was a great run, no doubt. It was just towards the end you could see the nerves started to kick in for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess just overall thoughts on the race from your side.
It was fun. That's practically it. I just liked having the race environment and stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun to be thrown in here, and huge props to everyone who's making this possible. Not only at Speed Gaming, but the people who are organizing the tournament. Huge props to everyone involved. This has been a lot of fun so far, and again, I've said this about every single time so far, but we're just getting started. So thanks a lot, Casual Knight or Crobat Master,
just call
for
me
stopping
Casual
by.
Knight.
Yeah, Casual Knight's easier. And yeah, I guess that wraps it up. There is going to be another race on Speed Gaming 5 in about 90 minutes, another Celeste race, but the one following up here.
All right.
So
do
yeah,
I need the thing now.
Yeah, you can head out if you want.
Right.
We're gonna wrap up here. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. And yeah, make sure you follow the runners. That's exactly what I was about to say.
Also, have you heard of Twitch Prime?
Yeah, make sure you follow the runners, and feel free to follow Cookie and I as well. Not trying to sell us out or anything, but yeah.
And it looks like actually coming up right after us, we have a Link to the Past rando race between Anti and Zero Rush. And like
should be a lot of people here for
I'm
that.
not really like big into rando, but they're both really good at that, so that should be a good race.
Very much so. All right. Thank you all for watching. We're going to close up now and hand it over to the Link to the Past randomizer people.
Goodbye forever.